And time now for Focus. In Iraq, the fight against the Islamic State group saw often opposed militia and troops come together in their bid to oust a common enemy. With that enemy now all but entirely eliminated, tensions between various factions are on the rise. Iraqi forces are currently present along the contested borders of Kurdistan, a region that of course held a referendum on independence last month, reaffirming the aspirations of local leaders to break away from the rest of the country. Our reporters take a look at the different powers now at play in Iraq.
This patch of desert southeast of Hawija is among the latest areas freed from the Islamic State group. In September, Shia militia dislodged a terror organization which took control in 2014 amid little opposition from the Iraqi army. Today, it's not the regular Iraqi army, but Saraya al-Khorasani that has hoisted its flags everywhere. This brigade is known for particularly strong ties with neighboring Iran and forms part of Hashd al-Shabi, an umbrella group of predominantly Shia militia recognized by the Iraqi government. Ali al-Husseini is their spokesperson in the area. He himself spent 20 years in Iran.
We are at one of the outposts with the Khorasani brigade. This place has been completely liberated. Now it's under the control of Hashd al-Shabi. And as you can see, our heroes are enjoying their victory.
Hashd al-Shabi isn't the only force in the area. They share the front lines around Hawija with Kurdish Peshmerga fighters. In the course of the fight against the Islamic State group, both sides have expanded their areas of control and now want to reassert their authority over this disputed land, claimed by both Iraq and autonomous Kurdistan.
There are still tensions. The Peshmerga don't want the Iraqi army in these areas. They also reject the presence of Hashd al-Shabi. These disagreements have delayed the start of the battle to liberate Hawija.
The Kurdish vote for independence, held on September 25th, has further increased tensions. The Iraqi government and the Shia militia opposed the Kurd secessionist ambitions and vowed to defend Iraq's territorial integrity.
We will fiercely fight anyone who tries to undermine or divide Iraq, or who doesn't respect it. Iraq is for everyone. It doesn't belong to a politician. It's not a country for one particular group or one particular religion. Iraq is for Iraq and for all Iraqis.
A united Iraq for all, but under the colors of the Shia flag. In Tuskhurmatu, Arab and Turkmen Sunnis and Kurds don't feel comfortable with the ubiquitous Shia banners that enthrone every building, even the roof of this historic Sunni mosque. Tensions between the Kurds and Turkmen Shia turned violent in November 2015 and again in April 2016. Since then, Tuskhurmatu has been divided. 6 different Shia militia have carved up the southern and western neighborhoods of the city, while 2 factions of the Kurdish Peshmerga control the northeastern corner. The city today resembles a garrison town. Checkpoints of Kurdish and Shia forces have mushroomed along the front lines that segregate the city, sometimes just dozens of meters apart. Swara is one of the Peshmerga soldiers who protect the entrance to Kurdish neighborhoods.
We have agreements between the 2 sides, but they are fragmented between many groups, and some of them violate those agreements and harass the civilians. But normally we coordinate.
But despite these agreements, the Peshmerga refused to accompany us to the Iraqi checkpoint, just 100 meters away.
They'll cause us problems if we go there.
No, we aren't going further.
This militarization of the city has prompted many civilians to leave. Closed shops line the street that delineates the border between Kurdish and Turkmen Shia areas. Once a mixed city where people from different communities intermingled, Tuskhurmatu's inhabitants are now separated by walls, and many don't dare to talk. Kamal Zain belongs to the Kakai minority and is neither Kurd nor Shia. Despite the tensions, he runs his pottery shop on this otherwise deserted street.
The situation is bad because of the problems between the Kurds, the Arabs and the Turkmen. One can't have 3 governments in one country. Each supports their own representative, but this isn't the way to run a country. This is like a kid's game.
In the midst of these political rivalries, one community has all but vanished. Arab Sunni families accused by some to be responsible for the arrival of the Islamic State group. In this Kurdish neighborhood, many houses are abandoned and for sale. Fanouz Ahmed has watched many of her neighbors leave.
They all left because they're afraid. You see that today the city is full of Hasht al-Shabi. Of course people are afraid. They fear that Hasht al-Shabi could come to our side of town and that there could be fighting, even a massacre.
Fanouz's husband was killed by Saddam Hussein's army. A mother of 6, Fanouz shepherded her family through the brutal reign of Saddam and then the Islamic State group. She hopes that her country will finally find peace.
People need to negotiate. Why must we always have a war? It brings nothing but destruction. Have we not fought each other enough? All those men who've died for nothing. All those men taken from their families.
Like many others, Fanouz fears that the defeat of the Islamic State group in nearby Hawija could mark the beginning of another cycle of violence. The terror group has been the sole unifying force between the Peshmerga and Hasht al-Shabi. Given the proximity of the two forces in Tus-Khurmatu and in other disputed areas of Iraq, a spark is all that's needed to ignite the next civil war.
And joining me now from Erbil in Iraq is analyst Hiwa Osman. This, of course, should have been a moment of celebration with forces having routed out Islamic State group militants finally from Hawija, their last major urban stronghold in Iraq. But as we can see in that report, it's far from that, isn't it, Hiwa?
That's right. I think it's always been a situation of people on the ground fighting, but the politics always failed the fighters on the ground. Today, the issue of these disputed territories was there was a law that or a constitutional clause that governed the future of these areas, that set laid out the future of these areas and how to be divided or normalized, but the presence of ISIS and then later the creation of the Hasht al-Shabi, the paramilitary group after the presence of ISIS into this the takeover of ISIS, and the disappearance of the Iraqi army back in 2014 when ISIS took over these areas, created this current situation of Kurds being in charge of areas that were left by the Iraqi army. Today there is a new force, mostly Shia, ideologically motivated, and there is the risk of them running into conflict with the Kurdish forces in these areas. The Kurds do not seem yet to be convinced that the Iraqi army is capable of keeping these areas. They may be able to liberate areas from ISIS with the support of the international community and the international coalition, but keeping the areas and providing good governance and good politics in these areas is still up in the air. It's all up in the air, and unless this happens, we risk the re-emergence of ISIS 2.0, ISIS 3.0, and new versions of ISIS in these areas. Because really the issue in these areas is mostly political and not military.
Because as you point out there, when there's a vacuum, this is when violence steps in, there's chaos, and as a result, as you say, we could see the re-emergence of yet another form of the Islamic State group. But coming back to this victory, how has that impacted the relationship between the Kurds and the Iraqi army now that they've vanquished their common enemy?
The success story of cooperation between the Peshmerga forces and the Iraqi army after Prime Minister Abadi took over has been talked about, and it has both sides talk about it as an indication that they will not go into war with each other when they discuss the political future. Now there is another dispute between Erbil and Baghdad over the referendum in Kurdistan, and while the political dispute is underway, is ongoing, a battle was also underway between the Peshmerga and the Iraqi army on one side and ISIS, the Islamic State, on the other side. So there is something to capitalize on, but I'm yet to see a political statement, mostly from Baghdad, because they are the ones in charge of the country, to say that the only way for us to go through these difficult times is dialogue. The only way for us to see the future, to see these victories through, not only military, but we need a political victory as well, is to provide good governance, equality, citizenship rights to all the people in these areas, be the who are mostly Sunni Arabs in these areas. But I'm yet to see that any vision or policy, clear policy, about the future of these areas that were liberated from ISIS. And that will dictate the nature of the relationship between the Peshmerga forces and the Iraqi army in the future, I believe.
Hiwa Osman, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you so much.